2.5%.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to this Warrant Committee meeting, March 4th. Snowstorms notwithstanding, I compliment you all for your fortitude in coming out. And we can begin by looking at our minutes, which you all received electronically from our last meeting. Are there any additions, deletions, modifications, other amendments? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Second, all in favor? Thank you very much. Our principal order of business tonight is our Town Administrator, Mike Dennehy, to give a presentation about the budget. And fortunately, he's here and ready to go. Thank you for coming, Mike. We're grateful for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Please excuse my garb. Snow day today.
You're in fine company.
Yes. It's a little bit like Groundhog Day. I look back at some of the tape from my first Warrant Committee go-around, and I think the gentleman to my right hit the nail on the head and talked about the top-down problem that the town has. We're very revenue restricted.
Yes.
You can see it. I disseminated my recommendations for the preliminary budget to everyone. We're 2 years removed from the override, and we continue to struggle with revenues to meet our what I would call some modest contractual and obligatory personnel raises. We can walk through the chart if you want, but I just want this committee to know that we have had a series of roundtable discussions with each of the department heads, met with the school department and the school committee several times. Basically, where we are now is just we're looking at reductions from the original budget submissions that were sent to me in December, just because as we refine the revenue numbers, it's not the picture that we need to see. We do have House budget and Senate budget coming. We don't anticipate that being the golden egg for us.
Do you have an idea, Mike, where...
It's usually 100 or two. Aaron's worked up there before. It's not going to save the day.
Okay.
We're revisiting some of the numbers with each of the departments to not cut departments, but reduce their submissions. Unfortunately, it's not the best picture in the world. There is some underlying statistics that we're still working through. Our health insurance, group insurance consultant, Cook and Company, recommended that we make a 16% increase to health insurance this year. We cannot pass that on to the employees. That would be unacceptable. And quite honestly, a budget buster. So what takes place is my board in 2015 adopted Chapter 32B, Sections 21 and 22, which allows the town to form an insurance advisory committee. That committee is made up of one of the representatives of each of the unions in town. They will be having their second meeting on March 7th, this Thursday, to discuss plan redesign. As a part of that Mass General Law that allows you to do that. So that 16% number is pretty devastating. So the budget that you see here is carried with that 16% number. But we anticipate that number coming down somewhat. But again, it would be preliminary to determine what we could save from that. We're revisiting everything.
What's driving that number, do you know? I mean, that's a huge increase.
That's a very large increase.
So last year, they recommended an 11% increase from us, and we also couldn't sustain that, so we increased it 5%. The logic is that the trust fund that you hold should carry comfortably between 20 and 30% of your claims annually. If we had increased to 11%, that would have created a problem with us. So it's not something that we kicked down the curb. There were some holiday pay periods involved in FY18. The first pay period, there are 26 pay periods in town. The first pay period was given as a holiday, and in FY19, both pay periods in December were given a holiday, so as to draw down the trust a little bit and not increase that number as suggested to 11%. Again, the town pays my health insurance biweekly is $220. I have the family plan. That's 26%, sorry, 24% of the obligation. So the town picks up the other 76%. So you can do the math. Roughly, it's about, $13,000 per family plan per person. So it adds 16% onto
Just
that.
about average.
Yeah,
That's average.
yeah. And that was part of the last negotiations with the unions, was to increase the employees' portion from 80-20 to 78-22 and then 76-24. So the other bad news is my previous employer, the City of Boston, went out to bid recycling the other day. And I don't know if you folks saw it, but $160 per ton was the only bid, which is twice what we pay
Wow.
for solid waste, which
Wow.
is unheard of in the industry.
Wow.
So,
What was driving that, Mike?
so they had signed a relatively poor contract with the City of Boston. The City of Boston for the last 5 years has been paying a ceiling of $5. So when other communities are paying $60, $70, $80 a ton for recycling, the ceiling price for Boston with their contract with Casella was $5. So this is almost them kind of making up for what they lost over the last 5 years. But we don't see a 160 number coming our way. We're putting together RFPs for both solid waste and recycling. Chase Berkeley has conservatively estimated that at 17.5% increase. We don't know where that's going to go. We're also negotiating with the current hauler and both facilities, both the solid waste and recycling facility, to do that. Along those lines, I'm revisiting using free cash to purchase the trash barrels and come up with a trash bill. I had put it on the back burner because we were a little short with the useful life carryover. But long and short is, if we could come up with $340,000, we could purchase trash carts. That would become your annual sticker. It would be an opt-out program, and we anticipate collecting $300,000 or $400,000 more than we currently do with the sticker program. So we're trying to come up with ways to generate revenue. To the taxpayer, it's the same. It's a $156 trash bill, which is $3 a week, one sticker. We would just collect more because, as we spoke before with this committee, there's resident noncompliance and driver error at times, and it adds up over time. So,
Right.
again, we're trying to bring some revenue numbers in and cut the overall departmental budgets with the current workforce that we have and the service level that we have, quite honestly. So, trying to think what else we're working on. Again, we're starting to make some headway with cuts, with reductions from the previous submission of the budget. Our reserve numbers are pretty good. I ran all the reserve numbers today. All our enterprise funds and our free cash number, which we know was a little over 1.9 million. Our stormwater, water, sewer, they're all healthy enterprise funds. So again, we're going to sit down. Town accountants, I don't know if she's back from London or not, but we have to sit down tomorrow. Committee member Cassis found an error with Chief King's holiday pay in his
saw that,
spreadsheet.
yeah.
So that's a $30,000 correction we'll make, so.
Nice job.
Good job, by the way, Captain.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it was just a formula in the Excel spreadsheet. It wasn't anything. So again, we're sitting down with the appraiser and sitting down with the treasurer and trying to come up with maybe more accurate or more robust excise tax numbers or new growth or any way to try to increase that revenue number, but being, cautious that everything that we forecast, we can meet.
Can you talk a little about any potential savings that can be implemented or that are being considered as we try to reconcile the numbers?
So one of them was that we talked about is we have set aside $400,000 for cap stabilization. The useful life of the fire truck and the 3 public works vehicles that were pronounced. We know that we have to catch up not only in this fiscal year, but in the next 2 fiscal years. So we had put $200,000 in each, both FY '21 and '22, knowing that we identified an issue and we're trying to make sure that we protect ourselves from that issue. So as if we go out to bond the AAA rating that we have, could be sustained, and the interest savings that come with that. Now, the naysayers say that's not really important. The worst part of getting a AAA bond rating is the fact that you have one and you have to keep it forever.
Keeping it,
So we're looking at things like that. Obviously, if the gift for the fire building committee comes through, we had assigned $670,000 of free cash for that. That's something that could be freed up. So you're talking almost $1 million there. Collective bargaining agreements we're working on now, currently. So we don't know where they're going to resolve to, but, yeah, just a litany of stuff that we're trying to increase our revenue numbers and trim some of the expenditures. And again, it's just a reduction of at this point in time, because it's so well, I know it's March 4th, and it's not quite preliminary, because we go to print in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, whatever the case might be. But just wanted to give everyone this and know that there's meetings going on here daily to try to refine these numbers, knowing that $2.8 million is a real number for a shortfall.
So Mike, that being said, you know, we do have to go to print in 2.5 weeks, something like that. So where do we stand right now in getting some kind of an idea soon what budgets are going to be cut and by how much, and what the impact is of cutting those budgets?
So I have sent this sheet around, which is my suggestion, which is a 65-35 split. 65% of the shortfall, whatever it might be, should fall on the school side, and the 35% should fall on the town side. And I've presented it to this committee, and then I think the yeoman's work that's done by the committee is you give numbers back to me, whatever percentage or dollar amount you see fit. I go to those department heads and say, this is your real number. Some of them we've identified,
To
quantified.
be perfectly honest, when you're talking this kind of a cut, I don't want to be the one making the decision which department you get it. I mean, if you want to say, 65-35, fine, but it shouldn't be this committee that's going to decide how much is fire, how much is police, how much is DPW. It should be coming collectively from the administration. And
Sure,
just give
but-
us the impact.
Yeah, so we can run.
Otherwise, we'll never make.
We can run certain scenarios. If this committee wants to make a suggested number to me, I can bring all the departments heads in and just say, collectively, we have to get to, 700,000 on the town side or $1 million on the town side. So I am looking for some direction from this committee with respect to where the cuts, reductions have to come from. I mean, we've identified a few specifics, and it's almost like Groundhog Day, right? We talked to the libraries, they're gonna have to close the libraries every Saturday in the summer and every Sunday.
Right, but I think that's the information we need. And
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to be able to go out and get that information.
Right.
Because we need to know impacts, and
Yeah, what's the impact of these cuts? What does a
Individually for
65
each department.
What does a 65% cut look like in the schools? Like, what are we gonna lose? What does a
Right.
35% cut
So-
look? What are we gonna
So,
lose?
yeah, and I qualify that, right? That's very good, and we have had those conversations.
Okay.
We've drilled down to most of the specifics. The school committee, finance subcommittee meets tomorrow night, and they've identified certain scenarios. I know they met with the subcommittee last week, I believe.
Yes.
And a lot of this is because we had town meeting, and now we're going from 0 to 60.
Yeah.
But we have a list of town side cuts that were mentioned.
Can I ask a question about, have you talked to the legislative delegation at all about the formula for the schools? So there's been talk on Beacon Hill about changing up that formula for this budget cycle. So I'm wondering if our legislative delegation has been in contact with you at all about a new formula for that.
No, it's my understanding that was July 1st, that they were going to investigate that, and the numbers that were presented for FY '20 are.
Those are, you're,
Yeah, I don't think they're going to
They're not gonna
reinvent the
they're not
wheel
gonna
in the
change
next 3
chapter.
months with respect to the Chapter 70 formula. I know there's talk about doing it, and there's
Okay.
some communities that are leading that charge because they feel,
Yes.
the Lowells, the Lawrences, that they feel that they're not getting their fair share.
but we
of
wouldn't
that.
see a massive increase in that.
No, I
formula
think that's
redistribution
a
anyways.
tractor trailer. I don't think that's a NASCAR
Yeah,
term.
I agree.
Is it really
Doug,
possible to
oh.
see a little bit more about where the fiscal 19 actual expenditures are?
Sure.
Because as I looked at all of these, it's budget to budget, and what I found in most cases was
Budget,
budget
yeah.
to budget, and, I'm gonna need 2% more, 3% more. But if the starting point is not valid, that would give us a
So
better.
budget v. actual is what you're looking
Yeah,
for, right?
well, I'd like to know, we're well into
Mm-hmm.
fiscal 19. When they first prepared these, they were only a couple of months in, so I could see it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
But now to see where we are, where we're that much closer, we're three-quarters of the way through.
Yes, of course.
So that would give us a better idea of, you know,
Have there been any significant underspendings? I mean, where there have been cost savings, et cetera, or returns to the general fund?
We have
that-
some employees that are turning over. Cemetery superintendent
Right.
moved on. Trace Desmond had a wonderful event
Right.
for her last Wednesday. So we'll see some cost savings there. Parks director has moved on, so we'll see some type of savings there. We're trying to identify what the next steps for that. But some of that stuff, it's again, we still have that RFP for the
Yep.
solid waste and recycling. That's going to go out sometime in April. And the group insurance number.
Those
so-
are going to be tough to
Yeah,
overcome.
but I can get you a complete breakdown
very
of all the
helpful.
town cuts and what they would look like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
yes.
extremely
That's what I
helpful
was
for,
asking.
particularly for our next meeting, because we really have to put the pedal to
Yeah,
the
I can
metal
get you that
now.
stuff tonight.
The
Yeah.
special town meeting kind of got in the way of all this. Doug,
That's what I was gonna ask, is
Yeah.
what's the order of magnitude of the cuts that you've already identified, especially if this deficit holds true, which is very significant, and you want suggestion or direction from this committee as to what are options? We'd like an idea of just how big a
Sure.
gap between identified and unknown
Very good,
do we
and I'll
have to work
certainly
with?
provide that for you. What we did do when we talked to the town departments was, what can you eliminate without eliminating, without going backwards? What can you
Yes.
reduce without cutting from FY '19? We did have two budgets on the town side that were less than level funded. The Council on Aging and Building Commissioner's Office have less money asked for in '20 preliminarily than they did in '19, and now we're going to ask them to go even lower on '20 than they did on '19. So most of these are bare minimums, and when you ask for 3% from the treasurer's office, it's $9,000, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That's for
it's small.
3% from the Council on Aging, it's
So
$12,000.
as a dollar figure, about
Yeah.
how much have we identified?
well, it seems like you're kind of doing onesies, twosies, so
Yeah.
you're limiting, I mean, those are going to be, small savings from small budgets, but the big budgets are still significant, and
Yeah.
there's some stuff that you just can't, by regulation and
The-
statute, you
can't
have
touch.
to.
The stuff you're gonna see on the town side are the three biggest budgets, which is police, fire, and DPW. It's just, do we put off some of the roadway repair and some of the operational expenditures that, quite honestly, that this town has become very comfortable with the level of service that we've been providing,
Oh, yeah.
which is, a conversation that we've had, but,
And I guess I ask again, and I'm not sure that anybody's touched it yet, and it may be too late for this budget fiscal year, but when is the last time we reviewed fees, parking violation fees, building permit fees, all the fees that we charge? When's the last time we actually looked at it critically and compared it to other towns?
Yeah, that's something we could undertake. I did have a conversation with the building commissioner about it. Some of the stuff with parking fees, we ran into the problem in Boston, right? We had trouble ticketing people because in the Back Bay, they'd pay $40 for a ticket, but it would cost you $50 to park the car. So they'd take the ticket, right? They'd roll the dice and hope they didn't get. Then you come in with enforcement, which means you're gonna tow the vehicle and move it to a remote location, which means now it's $240. But that ticket number gets contested, because if you start charging $100 for a ticket and you can only charge $100 for parking in a handicap spot or a hydrant, it really doesn't, I parked 2.5 hours in a 2-hour zone and you're charging me the same for parking in front of a hydrant or parking
Yeah,
in a
clearly-
handicap spot.
clearly you can't do
That
that.
doesn't really justify itself. So there are some
But
limitations you
should the
can
whole scale
do
be
with
brought
that.
up, too? I mean, I don't even know what we charge for a parking ticket, to be perfectly honest, but.
Yeah, it's anywhere from 20 to 50 during
I do
snow
know
events.
that, over the past, and I haven't looked at it in a few years, but it was consistently going down, not up.
Right.
Which, right away, bell went off. Something's wrong.
Right,
I mean-
and that's where the parking enforcement officer, with that, this committee was presented by the chief of police. 1 ticket an hour, it pays for itself. And the idea, and I know the chief said it that night, is not to be punitive, but it's to enforce and be
And
compliant.
get space turnover and everything else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what the business wanted. Having said that, we went to the traffic mitigation committee met last Thursday night, and there was a gentleman that spoke about over-enforcement in these 2-hour parking lots where you're trying to take cars off the road. right? And those people that are using the lots down on Wharf Street or on Elliott are actually jumping on the train, and they're actually keeping cars off the
Yeah.
road.
Oh, yeah.
And you have that conundrum there, right? Are we gonna ticket people that are gonna jump on the train and actually put less cars on the road?
Right.
And less congestion, so it's that whole balancing act. And he made a very good point why we shouldn't have 2-hour parking, but if you go down to Tino's, he needs people to turn over every 15 minutes, or his clientele's not gonna be there, so.
None of those cars are gonna be
Not our
driving around
responsibility
town.
to
They're
provide
gonna be
parking.
leaving town.
And if we do, we should be charging for it.
Right.
Right, there are
That was
lots.
Wollaston.
We should meter those
And
lots.
also
Yeah.
Wall Street and
But with any of these programs, enforcement is the key.
Yeah, but we're not
Right.
Boston.
That's
Also,
not
you know,
gonna-
this is a small town. Never had to really pay for parking there.
Well, but
So just go in your
what he says is true.
neighborhood.
It's people using the T that are
Yeah.
parking for free. And
Yeah, we're
Yes.
talking
they
about
shouldn't be.
Tino's. Tino's in your neighborhood, store
Right,
that
but
you
you
want to
should-
get.
Understand, yeah,
Paying for parking just to go grab a slice of pizza is not really going to help.
yeah.
Brian, you had a question.
No, I was just gonna, it's more a comment, just so that we can have it on the record. A lot of these sound good, and we should maximize every opportunity we should get. These are short-term
Exactly.
Band-Aids.
Yep.
We're 2 years separated from an override, and we're having this, and here we are. This is a sad indictment on our ability to generate new revenue streams in this town.
Revenue is clearly the
2
key.
years
I
separated
mean,
from
one thing
override.
that,
We have a $3 million shortfall. This is a problem that is deep, it's structural. We need to have different conversations than we've had in the past.
well, the difficult conversations that we've started here, and I think the select board is also having, is a pilot program. I just look, across the river in Boston, you have X number of universities, and they are being asked to contribute, and some extremely generously. I mean, on one extreme, I remember seeing statistics, Boston University gives several $1 million in payment in lieu of taxes. BC gives a couple $100,000, a few novenas, and, thank you very much. And that's lovely, and God bless the Jesuits. But the point is that we have in this town not-for-profits that benefit greatly by the services that are provided and provide almost nothing, frankly, to the citizens of this town. I mean, Milton Academy is a wonderful place, but, skating twice a month, in the middle of the night for residents isn't my idea of a contribution. That's an
especially compared
exaggeration,
to what they
of course.
otherwise would have paid in
Well, the point is,
taxes if they
the
had to.
point is that there are institutions in town which benefit from being in the town, and there can be very creative ways of generating revenue that they can pass on to their students, their whomevers, if properly incented. And I think we're beyond the point where that conversation should have happened. I think there are many people in town who want to see these institutions preserved and nurtured, et cetera, but there are an equal number of people who are saying, okay, they're here, they're privileged, let's see what you can do. No, ask not what we can do for you, ask what you can do for us, to paraphrase a great speech. I think that's a conversation that has to accelerate now. I genuinely think that.
Residents have brought that up too. I've spoken
Yes.
about.
Projections from the insurance consultants with regard to what's gonna happen next year and the year after that.
Yeah, that's part of the insurance advisory committee.
I mean, it's not gonna get better.
Right, yeah. Otherwise, you're gonna have to draw your trust down to an unsafe level
don't wanna
below
do that.
20%.
You don't wanna be doing that.
Which you don't want, because then you can't meet your claims.
No, yeah.
It sounds like they carried over the number
Brenda.
again.
What's the actual dollar figure for the insurance? I think you said it was included here, and I noticed that for
I think we
benefits.
carried it at 12 million last year, could go to 14 million, I think.
Okay, so it's roughly 2 million, so
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the bulk of this negative figure.
And there's some requirements with the IAC that I'm aware of, but I can't quite, there's a certain timeline you have to meet with the IAC. You have to meet in so many days, and there's a series of requirements that come with that Mass General Law that the town has to follow with that group. Again, they're in the second meeting is gonna take place on Thursday with that representative body. And my assistant town administrator, who's the HR director, sits in on those conversations. But that, I won't say it'll accelerate, but we'll get to a point where plan design is discussed more formally.
And is the hope that it actually decreases that 16%, or?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That's why we're executing the adoption of those two sections.
So for the reductions that are listed here, there's the potential that a chunk of it could come from
Correct.
this process.
Yeah.
And so the 3565 would be on a
Yeah, so the.
Smaller
A percent, a number of the 2.8 million could be reduced. with,
Right.
after the IAC, and that process has taken place.
Any understanding of how much it could be reduced by, like best case scenario?
I don't know. Cook and Company is working through numbers for Thursday. They'll run through a series of plans. Had the town adopted Section 32B, Chapter 32B, Section 23, which it didn't, you could drop a GIC plan in there.
Which would have been great.
Right.
That would have been terrific.
Right.
That would have been ideal.
That would have saved you.
It's not a panacea, believe me.
It's not, but it's
It's
better
not, but
than
it's
what we
better than
have.
what we're doing right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
And now we're under the gun. I mean, Gwendolyn has asked really great questions, but 2 weeks to get this done to see if we can negotiate. I mean,
So they will have estimates that they work with the IAC that I can share with this board. Obviously, there has to be agreement with the town and the IAC.
Right.
I'm not sure of the legalities of how they work their way through the system, but there's numbers, different scenarios being presented by Cook and Company.
Brian, you had a question.
I was gonna say, Town Administrator, how atypical is this timeline for getting this, understanding what the increase is, and also what did we plan for during the preliminary planning? Like, is this unusual to get sort of this kind of late breaking development? Is this atypical in the budget timeline?
I didn't think we would be 2.8 short on March 4th. The useful life was approximately, I think it was $240,000 impact this year. The group insurance number projection that Cook and Company came in was startling. That wasn't what the town accountant had carried it in the budget. And she wasn't being, she was being pretty conservative with the number she carried. I believe it was 7%.
Do we have, trended data going back of what this has looked like year over year? Because that's, it would be good to understand kind of what the methodology is for what we put aside so that we can kind of mitigate some of these surprises. And it's not anyone, I'm surprised that it's this high, this late in the game. It puts us in a really, really, even you as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's $1.9 million in free cash. Am I a fan of using free cash for operations? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But there is free cash available,
We should-
possibly, if we move the cap stabilization money out of FY '21 and '22, and the gift comes in for now we're talking $1 million of free cash. Is it kicking the can down the road a bit? It certainly
It's
is.
doing that, and we're also counting chickens before
Right.
they hatch.
Yeah.
We're going to use all the
Yeah.
fable
Right.
imagery,
And then you hope you get free cash next year.
Yeah.
Above
all
and
that
beyond.
stuff. Doug, you had a question.
This might be a little hard for you off the cuff, so I can understand if you have to research it a bit. But how many vacancies are there currently throughout the town? And if we just put like a hiring moratorium, how much would there be savings? If we
I
just
think
don't
the only,
hire?
well, there's the Parks Director, right, they haven't worked through that process yet. And then, the tricky part is the override 2 years ago funded 2 police positions.
Okay.
Only one of those have been filled.
Okay.
Right?
So there's not much.
Right, and my board has made it perfectly clear that under no circumstances should that second one not be filled, because that was a referendum vote, right? That position should be filled before anything, because it became part of the vote. But other than
no real
that,
savings in not
there's not
hiring.
many, I don't know of any
Okay.
vacancies on the town side.
Okay,
Yeah, we have an interim vacancy with the Parks Director.
but
And you get the odd one. There was a W-2 in the Parks Department, which was recently filled.
Okay, so the uncomfortable question that one asks is, seeing that the insurance is, I believe, the overwhelming majority of this imbalance, the increase in insurance, we can look at it that way, and it's not going to get any easier going forward. We all pay insurance of some sort. As a negotiating point, how willing would the town be to ask employees to start contributing a larger percentage? I know it's going to go up and they're going to have to contribute more.
I
too,
don't
but
think that's
on a
part of the
relative basis.
IAC conversation this time. I wasn't privy to the last conversation, but I
First
think,
of all, we're under a moratorium. Are we not?
the current insurance policy is carried through December 31st of this year.
This year.
Yeah.
Right.
The moratorium on making
Yeah.
plant design changes in
Until
Yes.
when, Tom? When is it?
December of.
December, except for one union, the managers' union.
But now accelerating forward,
Yeah.
that, it's off after the 31 December. So is that conversation not possible after that? I would think it would be.
Yeah, it probably has to be.
Uncomfortable as it is.
I don't know
that
what,
wouldn't help this
what
budget.
It
the
doesn't help
outcome-
this budget, but I'm just thinking ahead, too. I
Yeah.
mean, we're all going to live in this town for a little longer, right?
Yeah, and what I heard in my last series of negotiations was that when you're asking me to pay more of my health insurance, then I'm gonna ask more for a COLA,
Yeah,
right? Or stipends, or steps and lanes, and,
right.
you
It's the
know.
whole package.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we want qualified and, decent employees, we need to think about what we're offering them as a whole package. And to be honest with you, 22, 24, 26%, it's about right what people are paying.
We also have to be able to pay for them.
Well, then we need to start having other conversations, like Brian said, about how we're gonna do this. I mean, part of the thing that the school committee said when they were here is that the local, like Milton Academy, is not taking as many Milton kids anymore.
They haven't been for many years.
And so now we're seeing an increase and possibly having to build a new school. Now granted, there's a lot of other factors, I get all that. But let's say if 30 kids from around Milton that have applied, and I know a lot of them have applied, and they're on wait lists, what if those got in? Then, then do we not need to do this so quickly, or is there something else we can do? I mean, I just think it's something.
I think the trend is still,
Yeah.
we've seen the trend.
Right, the trend's gonna go up, but
Yeah, I think the other piece of the revenue piece is, and again, I praised Selectman Barrington and Selectman Zulus and Selectman Burns in the past that chaired the pilot committee. They continue to tap on that drum.
Yeah.
The other piece is right behind the chair is the development, all this development stuff that's going on in town.
Yes.
Takes time, right?
Absolutely.
It takes time. If we can get these in the pipeline, the Pulte project seems to be moving well along. I'm not exactly sure where the Carberry project is, but, town meeting talked about the ice house a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I know the Falcone project is stalled, but these projects, there's projects going on around us in every community, some of it putting undue burden on our roads, right? I think the Quincy Traffic Mitigation Committee has talked about this. All the development around us is putting more pressure on us from a congestion perspective and a cut-through perspective. But I think if we can get some smart development, and I get it, I'm not a resident of East Milton, but I hear what they're saying, but a smart development that would fit and supplement some of that revenue that, quite honestly, just we need, we're starving for.
yeah.
We need commercial development.
Mike, have you, given that the DPW budget, it had a healthy increase already for the proposed new solid waste contract, and that might be low. Is it time to look at the sticker what we're charging for?
So we did. Kathy Mercer is our Mass DEP representative. We were granted her for 80 hours, and she's been working with us through the solid waste communications. $3 for a sticker is a high number. I think if we get the trash bill in place, the sticker program will just supplement. I have some neighbors on my street that don't put the trash out every week. They're likely to opt out of the trash barrel program and continue with a sticker every third week or a sticker every fourth week. But many communities, and we've been reaching out, Braintree had a 95% rate. Only 5% of Braintree opted out. You offer a senior discount. Anyone that turns 65 by July 1st of 2020 would pay, I think in Braintree, it's if their bill's $150, they pay $95. So it kind of makes sense that if you're on a fixed income and you don't have a wife and 5 kids, that you're not putting out, hopefully you're putting out more recycling. But that avenue is getting a little expensive as well. So, but yeah, we have explored that. Kathy was very surprised how expensive we were. $3 is very high for a sticker. We would have to continue the sticker program for bulk items and other things, but I think the trash bill would help us find, and it's not more money coming out of the taxpayers' pockets. This is just $156 at 7,500 residents. Those
Which
that
not everybody's paying.
choose to opt out.
What do we pay now for the recycling bin? Per ton?
Recycling bin was free.
Recycling
Oh,
per ton.
recycling's $72 per ton, and trash is $80.
And what are we trying to get that? You said
So we
negotiate?
we're trying to negotiate an extension, and the idea is that they like the job, they like Milton, right? Waste Management handles our recyclables. In this day and age, contaminated recyclables are taboo because they can't get rid of them. They like Milton's material, and they wanted to sit down with us. And they have, and we're in the process of negotiating that. We are putting an RFP out just in case those negotiations don't get to where we want to, but perfect world, same hauler, same solid waste facility, same recycling facility. But we'll see, whatever nets the taxpayer the least amount of money.
But needless to say, that 72 is gonna go up, most likely.
Most likely, yeah. Yeah, I think, I don't want to speculate, but my opinion is the solid waste industry is claiming, and this came from Kathy Mercer again, that they're running out of space. They're running out of landfills. They're going to have to rail this stuff somewhere. With that comes an added cost, but I seem to think a lot of the profit that's going to be built into these solid waste are just the product of recycling, the recycling number going higher. So I would welcome any comments or suggestions from this committee as to other things, stones we could turn over. Brian's point, it's, this is, we're here, and I didn't think we'd be here, but we're here.
There are a few towns that are moving away from single stream. I know everybody moved to single stream, but single stream is part of the problem in terms of driving up the cost of recycling.
Yep.
Has anybody thought about, and
We did, and we looked at it, but Kathy was quite confident the fact that Waste Management likes our material, that it
wouldn't have much of an
would,
impact?
yeah, Milton has clean recycling, which is important in this market. She doesn't anticipate the market correcting itself a little bit to the better, but that time will tell. But yeah, she's been a huge asset. She meets with us, Hillary Waite, myself, and Chase Berkeley bi-weekly, and the Solid Waste Committee, which Mr. Boynton's on. We haven't met in a while, but Hillary's actively putting those contracts together for, probably send them out April 1st and see where those come in while we continue to negotiate.
Second question, in terms of the cuts, if it were me, my approach would be first go out to every department, including the schools, give me a bottom line number. We've got to close 2.8 million. Give me a bottom line number. What can you cut and still get by?
Maintain services.
Before you look at 65-35. And then when you've cut as much as you possibly can, then the rest of it's got to be just, and this is what this committee did before.
Right.
You interview every department head, give me a bottom line. Let's chip away at it, get it down as low as we possibly can. When you can go no farther, the only thing left is percentage.
Yep.
Problem is, we're gonna ask them to do that over email, basically, because we have 2 weeks.
I know.
Right, that's the other
So
thing.
that's the challenge.
I keep coming back, we're 2 weeks.
Right.
I mean,
Which is fine, I mean, it is what it is.
Well,
it is,
have to
but
deal with
next
it.
year, can we,
I
I
just don't,
mean,
I don't anticipate.
everything's next year, it's like
material
next
movement
year,
I've heard that last year.
right?
Yeah, the February special town meeting was,
That,
Sorry.
the special meeting
Was,
was very,
it was put together for one article and it ended up being 6.
but it's problematic for what we have to do because now we're really under the gun. And I don't know that necessarily we are, any of us, comfortable with what is required to do in the period of time
Yeah,
allotted.
I can bring any and all in, I don't know how often this committee's gonna meet.
We'll meet
but-
as often as we need to because
Okay.
we'll get it done. We only require, 3 days to serve the agenda, and whether or not anybody reads it is not my problem or anybody else's.
Yep.
It's our problem, and we'll do it. If they want to show up, that's great. If they don't, they can get another lecture from me at town meeting about not showing up when they should. And I'm happy to give it, too.
Yep.
But the simple reality is that we still need some help getting this through, and we may have to ask the printer to revise this timeline a little bit. I mean, it's a printer, it's
Yeah,
not
no,
rocket science.
and that's the thing, and Lynn knows this, the less corrections you have to make,
Yeah, right.
the more wiggle you have in
We're
the
always
end.
going to have corrections.
No,
but
and that's fine,
If he's
but-
going to be an old lady about it, then let's find another printer, because printers can be done. Sorry. No, I mean, if he's going to be unpleasant about it.
I know
much
many
is it
nice
in
old
the-
ladies, by the way.
How much of it is the actual production, how much of it is the mailing?
I want
People
this
have to get
committee
it
to
done.
be
I get that,
confident
but-
that we have been working
But go-
through
your point's
exactly
well
what
taken.
Tom has been talking about.
No.
The school committee obviously has to run it by their finance subcommittee before they can comment on it, and I would ask them to bring that to you here. But I mean, I could go through a list and I'll share this with everyone. This is just the preliminary stuff that we talked about. Inspectional services, reducing overtime. Fire, reduce training, personal day buyback, buy less equipment. Police, buy fewer cruisers. IT, reduce staff training, daily server upgrade. Veterans, reduce to historical expenditure level. Board of Assessors, reduce postage. Literally, that's like where we're at with some of these small departments. Public Works is, which is one of our bigger ones. Reduce work provided by contractors and outside services for snow and ice. So they're basically
We don't have a
taking,
lot of
hoping that we have a better winter than we do. Understanding that most of
Fine
those,
until today.
most of those shortfalls or adjustments come with a
Right.
reverse reserve fund transfer, but we have identified $533,000 on the town side that we could
So
reduce.
So it's not like, I
We
looked
have
at a lot of
basically a
the
very
larger
lean budget,
budgets,
especially before the
salaries and
override.
wages,
Don't
that's a
have
huge line
free
item, a lot
cut.
of. I didn't find a lot of rhyme and reason to the increases from one year to the next year, so I know those are all contracts
all
to unions.
contracted, yeah.
But shouldn't there be some kind of similarity in similar departments about the increases?
There should be, if they're in the same union, right? Unless they're getting a step raise, right?
Some of them weren't, and so the raises looked.
If you want to identify those in an email to me, I can take a look at them.
There's step and there's longevity
Yeah.
too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I saw, like, I looked at the police and the fire and I saw
Mm-hmm.
that, but like, say, the school, I didn't see that. It was like, here's the base budget, here's the other one, and then there was something else, adjustments. But I looked at ones that didn't have adjustments, and they were anywhere from 1.9% to 7.2%. And I don't know anybody that gets a 7.2% raise nowadays.
Have the school, I'm sure you've been in conversation with them about a possible 65% cut. Have they identified what they could do? I mean, going to Tom's point of how.
They're working through it, and I
mean-
keep mentioning that meeting tomorrow night. They have
Oh,
to pass
sorry.
everything
I'm
through the
really sorry.
finance subcommittee first.
Okay,
How responsive can they be? Because we're only as good as what's funneled up to us.
yep.
And I think that's what it's going to boil down to, because.
They've always, I've been here 3 years, this is my third go-around, they've been very responsive. Obviously,
Okay.
there's a chain of events that has to take
Sure.
place, but I would assume this is on their agenda for tomorrow night, and that it could be something they could speak to. They're aware of this sheet that I disseminated to this group and my recommendations. That's something they were taking to the finance subcommittee. And they'll be able to translate that for you into reductions.
So the next question is, just to get a little bit beyond the budgetary articles we're going to vote on, the non-budget articles, if we can see final wording for those this week.
Okay.
I saw the request by the library trustees to the select board to reopen the warrant to put in another article about the Kidder branch. How does that stand? Do we have any information
TBD.
about that?
TBD. There will be one less on it. The Yulin rink negotiations are very proactive. We were at the rink on Friday. DCR has committed $1.85 million in repairs to the rink, which is a
Yeah,
step in,
good.
a great step. Curry College isn't convinced, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Curry College, but we're still working through the 10-year agreement. We've extended the permit through April 30th of 2020, so we won't need the town meeting article for May for Yulin rink. But it's a great story. DCI is investing in boards and glasses and a brand-new compressor. So,
Wow.
yeah, come September, it'll be
The right size
the
compressor?
surface itself. Yes, and
It was
whatever's
That's good.
mandated, whatever's mandated by law, it's a legal obligation.
All right.
And the boards and glass
Still what's
aren't ADA compliant right now, so, but it's a sizable investment. We're trying to get to that 10-year permit. We're just not there yet, so. That town meeting article will be removed.
So, in the light of the things that we've discussed, what I would like to see, if we can, is the information to come as quickly as it can from the budgets of the individual departments with recommendations for where their pain threshold is. Secondly, the final wording for the non-budget articles ASAP, so we can disseminate this to the committee, because we have to start drafting sooner than we want to admit. And then a revised timeline to give us as much time as we possibly can get to put this together. What's the drop dead date that we absolutely have to get it to the printer? And we'll manage to that.
Yeah, and there's been great work done already by Lynn, Amy Dexter, and Jen McCullough in my office to get the template ready.
Perfect.
They're
That's great.
ready to roll, we just
No.
got to drop the
No,
numbers in.
it was very smooth the last time around, and I think it'll be even easier this time. But in order for us to give proper consideration and to vote on these things, we're really going to have some flexibility and some cooperation from the other boards of the town, which have to give notification. I mean, sadly, the planning board, I have great respect for what they do, but we're always looking at what they are voting before they actually vote the wording, so we have to come back and revise
So I
and,
don't think there's any planning board articles.
hallelujah. Oh, well, that's a little easier, but anyway, it's- not that we don't love watching and seeing everything, it's really lovely, and Cheryl does a beautiful job, but I mean, managing that process has been a challenge for us.
Yeah. So I will get you all these things. When do you meet again, and who would you
Next
like to
Monday.
see? And
Next Monday, I will,
I can bring my big three back in here.
the big three will probably be helpful,
Yeah,
and if there's
then
any other
schools,
questions, we
if you
can
can reach out to, or I can reach out to schools for you and see if they can.
probably, we'll confer on that before we leave
Email Betty
tonight.
White.
Yeah, I'm sorry?
I can email Betty White. She's on the finance
Yeah,
committee.
we can,
I'm too, I'm like,
but if we can do that, then we can go ahead and start looking at the budget articles and vote on them as soon as those will have to be voted on within the next 2 weeks, because the drafting has to begin, or it has to begin before then, but we have to vote on them. That will be very helpful. In fact, actually, that's crucial to get it done. So I think we're all kind of under the gun at this point.
I think what would be helpful, Mike, is that every time we meet, if you could be here,
yeah.
For the next couple.
get that budget spreadsheet up on the projector and kind of go over as the cuts
Yeah.
are being made.
Sure.
Let's look at them and understand them.
The only night I'm indisposed is the 18th, 2 weeks from tonight.
Okay? Work around that.
Yeah, and I could be here after 8.
We also have room for Wednesday,
We made some of those too.
But I'll be available.
Okay,
I'll make myself available.
Brian.
Is your preliminary, and I know you don't want to commit to anything right now, are you inclined to use free cash to chip away at this right now?
I started by saying I don't want to use free cash for nothing but one-time expenditures, right? It's-
Right.
You know, we've done a very good job of putting money into the stabilization funds and providing for a rainy day. I think that's what it should be used for, but that 2.8 number is,
And do you believe this qualifies as rainy day in that? No, I know.
Snowy day, maybe?
The problem with our financial policies say that nothing comes out of the stabilization fund unless there is a plan to replace it. And that's why we've never really taken anything out, because nobody's ever been able to figure out how it's ever gonna get back in there.
I'll just ask the uncomfortable question of, since reluctance of trying to use one-time funds, and what is the likelihood or percentage, the really undesirable thing of any sort of layoffs or cuts to town personnel? Because people are the biggest drivers of any, like, business budget and things, so. That's what I mean, is we have a very lean budget to begin with.
Yeah, this is not a
but-
bloated bureaucracy.
No, it's not. It's not a very big
It's not at all
budget
like
to
that.
make cuts of non-people. I'm just asking
everyone.
the unfortunate. I don't want to see it happen.
Most of the people I talk to are very happy with the service level in town.
Yes,
Right?
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
So I think
You're
the
doing a
answer
great
is,
job.
I don't know where.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you come into the town hall, you don't see people playing video games
No.
or throwing a Frisbee around. I mean, this is a place where people work. I think that's
No,
true at
we're
the
very
DPW,
bare
et
bones,
cetera.
but we have $3 million to try and find,
Right.
is the point. We're very bare bones, we have great services, we don't want to have any reduction in services, but we still have to find $3 million.
And over 80% of that budget is either payroll or payroll driven.
Yes, that's why I was asking the
That's the
uncomfortable
conundrum,
question.
right?
So close to the override too, where we said.
Yes,
That's
where
gonna
we
be-
hired
that's-
other people
I-
based
I-
on
I
this.
have-
Status quo.
I have no doubt the town,
Yes.
some town meeting members will be very, very rapidly
I-
making that point too.
I don't envy your position between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, both the police and the fire have almost $500,000 in overtime budgets. And is that cost effective to have overtime versus additional personnel?
I believe Chief Grant did a dissertation on it 2 years ago with the contingent, non-contingent budget about how overtime actually saves you money in the long run. I mean, we're talking about a $13,000 investment just in health insurance.
Right,
If
that's
that
the
employee
offset.
picks up, if that employee picks up the family plan,
Yep.
it's cost prohibitive. I mean, then you get into the retirement benefits and how long you own them for, but it's a very good question, and for some departments, it could be that. But I don't know the ROI on $500,000 for those departments, but every stone needs to be turned over.
I don't know the relationship between the departments, but you know that better than me. But from what I gather, are they talking with each other about certain help
Oh, yeah.
or like with the,
Yeah.
I know there's one department would get community service from the high school to teach a class or something like that, and it doesn't happen anymore. And I know I asked the library trustees if they could, bring on a high school student for some type of extracurricular activities, and they need the community service, but they said it's a
Union issue.
union issue. I mean, union issue, but we're gonna have more.
Yeah.
Budget
All of the
issues.
department heads understand the magnitude of where we are right now
Right.
and what we need to get to balance. Everybody does a great job at filing for state grants, federal grants, any type of grants you find. There's some very philanthropic foundations in town and people that support a lot of the stuff we do, all the street signs, all the flex posts, equipment that was purchased. So it's a group effort. Everyone's aware of where we stand today. And selfishly, but in a good way, everyone is advocating for their department, which is great. People of this town need to know that Chief King is going to advocate for the police department.
Yes.
Just like Mary Gormley is going to advocate for schools, and, Chase Berkeley's going to advocate for
Yes.
snow and ice and everything else that they do. So, it's a balancing act. And I'd accept any direction from you folks, and, we make the reductions, but we have to make the reductions.
Is there any talk, so we get through this budget, is there any talk or is there any plans currently in place of you and the select board meeting to come up with solutions? I mean, we're talking about cutting and cutting and cutting, but
Right.
obviously it goes back to the revenue that's coming in. So is there a timeline with the select board and you yourself about meetings of ways that we can try and generate new revenue for next fiscal year?
So the magnitude of this is also hit home with my board.
Oh, good.
Well, no, they hear it. A
I'm
lot
sure
of
they've-
them,
I'm sure
a
they've
lot of
known
them,
it
I
for a
mean,
while,
Selectwoman Conlon's been on the board for 6 years.
Ever,
Like,
right.
She's on the Warrant Committee,
Right.
I think in 1985. She's seen it, she knows it. Chair Wells was the police commissioner. Mike Zulis was the chair of the school committee.
95.
They've all walked in the shoes,
Right.
they understand it. Again,
Is there a plan, though? Is there a plan or any, I'm looking
I
for a
mean,
concrete answer to that.
Pilot committee, there's negotiations ongoing, right? Where that takes to, it is not a legal obligation for them to make a payment to the
There's
town.
no way to compel them to do
No.
this.
No, no,
That's a
but
golden
but-
fleece we may not
Good
find.
citizenship.
I think,
Yeah.
my board was very receptive to me possibly using $200,000 of free cash to buy the trash barrels in order to increase the revenue. Why
From
wait
that.
a year, right? And
Right.
lose out on that $300,000 or $400,000. When I presented that to them, they were very welcome to that, knowing that could be a source of revenue that we have not tapped before, and also wouldn't put more of a burden on the taxpayers, right? Because we have stormwater, we
Right.
have excise tax, and we
Oh, I
have
know all
blue
about it.
bills and yellow bills, and
But there's no 3-year plan, 5-year plan.
so,
I
to
mean-
that point, we signed a contract with ClearGov.
Yep.
We received a state grant for ClearGov. That information is being uploaded into their
Okay.
system. They work on an N+2 model, which means they need 7 years of financial information to come up with a 5-year plan for us.
Yeah.
That's being worked on.
That is happening. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So what the first step is getting 19 and 20's budget onto the town's website in full transparency. And then the other information, the following 5 fiscal years, Amy is working on with ClearGov, and with the hopes of having that launched sometime in June.
But to your question, is there a plan? I think one of the issues that we already voted on at the October meeting to create the chief financial officer position
Right.
was a step in this direction, because in
That's right.
every for-profit and not-for-profit
Yes.
organization, the chief financial officer is obliged to look at issues of this nature and come up with, not just look, but come up with solutions and right-size when necessary to the extent you can. And of course, in the municipality, it's a different beast. So there are things that can happen and things that unfortunately can't, but I think that's a big step in the right direction.
And that's on the referendum for April 30th.
Totally right. That's part of the article that we voted in and the town meeting adopted.
Yeah, I mean, I
in
think
October.
my board has also qualified what the Capital Improvement Committee did, which was kind of take a break from when the Capital Improvement Committee presented, I presented to them and they presented to my board, was we kind of pumped the brakes a little bit, right? We've done a very good job of replacing the equipment in town. You see a lot of new Sanders out there, right? Some of those were philanthropic from the Copeland Foundation, but others were concerted financial investments by the town Chase Berkeley and other department heads are confident that we could pump the brakes on those for a year or two. Albeit, Tom Hurley will tell you, you have that plan, you can't get off that plan, you'll never get back on that plan. But that's a conscious decision that was made by the Capital Improvement Committee and my board to kind of hold off on, we bonded for 7 million 2 years ago and 11 million this year. We all heard Webb Collins testify, if your budget's 100 million and you have 100 million in debt service, how sustainable is that,
Not.
right?
We know it.
So-
We know it's
So
not.
they did pump the brakes, if you will, on some of the spending, the bonded stuff this year, with just must-haves, right?
Yeah.
What work can Bill Ritchie do that will save us money in the long run, now?
Question that's a little unrelated to that, or maybe so. Straight from the residents, what would bring down the taxes of Milton for the residents? What type of commercial, I should ask straight from the residents, what would bring, what type of commercial business would, your opinion,
Where would you like it?
Yeah, there's no
exactly.
space.
bring it back?
Very
Right.
small
Right.
commercial zones.
Right.
Yeah, I don't mean to answer a question with a question, but
Right.
there's several projects that are trying to get off the ground, and whether it's NIMBY
Yeah.
or, just the size of them, or the
Right.
congestion factor that comes with it, or, DCR owns most of the land in town, or.
From a revenue standpoint, hotels.
Yeah.
In housing projects,
no.
like in
Hotel,
outstanding
motel tax.
housing developments
Yeah.
tend to use more
That's-
tax
that's-
revenue than.
That's a
they
big number.
get.
but-
It is a big number.
I mean, if you want just straight what would generate most revenue, yeah, it's commercial.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any huge, well, clearly no impact on the schools.
No,
But
but like housing development,
Just,
building a bunch of houses
back at you.
tend to be
Fire station
tax
is good.
It's going up and up.
costs
I think we have to have
Yeah,
one
those are the
conversation.
only things
About
we
putting
keep
some
building.
down at the police
Or
station.
standalone
Some on
houses.
this building.
Kidder into
The old people.
The library roof. you can still sustain.
Commercial use is a neighborhood store with a couple condos on it.
Do we have any other questions for our town administrator? Mike, thank you for coming. I know we don't make
Thank
it
you.
easy.
It's not easy.
We don't make it easy
No,
sometimes.
it's-
It's not an
it's-
easy, it's not an easy
It's one of the hardest parts of my
discussion.
job, because the taxpayers deserve a high level of service, and I think we're delivering a pretty high level of service, and the schools are in great shape. It's just, cost of living and not, as Brian said 2 years ago, we have a top-down problem, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, the insurance is
Yeah,
the,
and
that's
that's the other
the
thing.
real
The
driver
other
here.
thing that's noteworthy is the
That's the
general
whammy
insurance.
this year, yeah.
The schools were reassessed for the first time in a while, and the premium on that this year alone is $71,000,
Jeez, okay.
right? So that's an unexpected cost that, they didn't, fortunately, they didn't go back on us and say, you owe us $71,000 for the last 10 years when we
Generous.
didn't properly assess the value of your insured property, but,
reassessed in terms of replacement value?
yes. Yeah, so it went, I don't have the sheet in front of me, but it added probably 70 million to the replacement value, which translated to $71,000 increase in what we already pay, in addition to what we already pay, so.
Well, in one regard, it's a high-class problem. Things have increased in value, but they have to be insured, so we live with this. So we will look forward to getting
Yeah, and I'll get
info
you
as
all
soon
that
as you
info,
can, so we can circulate it.
Be
and
here
we can
next
get
Monday,
some-
just tell me who
Thank you, yes.
you'd like to join.
Okay, we'll confirm that with you, but I think your
Any other
sense is
questions
exactly the
during the
right
week,
one.
just shoot me an email. or-
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does he
Yeah.
want to donate?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have work over the next couple of weeks. I hope that we will be able to concentrate on it. Those of you who have had your subcommittee meetings already, please begin to draft the article. We don't have to put numbers in, but please begin to draft the commentary for the warrant report for the individual budgets that you've overseen, so we can at least have a head start on that, so we're not going to have a crunch time and Lynn isn't going to be overwhelmed.
You really can't do that, though.
Well, you can talk about trends in
The
it.
whole comment's going to be, what's the impact of the budget?
Oh, I understand, but at least
So-
you can have a sense of how it's moving and what the direction is. I mean, you can put numbers in, you can put census in, but
Not
I don't
yet.
think.
I mean, maybe in a week or so, but
Yeah.
not yet.
Yeah. Because we have to be done in 2 weeks, so I think if we're not thinking about it now, we're going to be really behind the eight ball, and I don't think any of us wants to be there.
It might be helpful to at least start a draft. It's easier to edit something that's
Absolutely.
something there than to edit a
Absolutely.
blank page,
Right.
but that's the only bright side of the situation.
We're dealing with it, okay? We
Yeah.
don't have a choice. We have to address this, and we have to address it in as succinct and as direct a fashion, because there's no place to hide. I mean, it's as simple as that. Okay, so I think that was the major agenda item. I think we're doing well other than that. Is there any new business that we need to, any questions, any comments that have come forward, any constituent issues that have come to light? If there aren't any, then, Tom?
You know, the only question is, going forward, we're gonna meet twice a week? Or?
We certainly will meet next Monday. We'll see about the following Wednesday and see who else is going to come. But certainly block off next Monday and conceivably next Wednesday also.
Would there be enough time to plan a meeting for Wednesday on Monday? I mean, we'd have to post it.
We'd have
Well,
to- yeah.
We'd
I
have to
can post it.
decide
It's easier to
beforehand.
cancel it. I can post it and we can cancel it if we have to.
I
That's
think
easy
we
enough to
need
do.
to do
Yeah, I
that,
think
because there
we
won't
can
be
do
enough
that.
time to arrange a Wednesday
So
meeting.
plan Monday and
on
Wednesday, just in case. And I think we can do that. But other than that, I think we'll just wait for the information to come out. You'll get it as quickly as Lynn and I get it. And we'll just soldier on. So our next meeting will be next Monday at 7. And we'll send out notification. We'll get the agenda in place as soon as I get information of who's going to be testifying before us, and we can move from there. So if there is nothing else, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Hey, Tom?
Yeah.